Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you today and share things with you. For those of you who have additional questions after this is done, there are multiple ways to contact me. Do not hesitate to ask me additional questions because I'm aware that many people will form questions next week or the following week. So you also provide, I think, a copy of this. So you can contact me either through my email address. I have a website, or I have a blog where I post information about updates in special education matters to help you with what's going on and understanding. The blog post that is most recent up there is a discussion of the Supreme Court case of April 28th relating to Section 504. And it's not going to change, even if the Supreme Court rules completely with the parents, because of we have a higher standard in Pennsylvania in the Third Circuit. It's not going to change much. But if you would like to find out what's going on and what the Supreme Court talked about on April 28th, I highly do recommend that you go to that blog and understand what's going on. And what our goal there is to keep you highly informed and updated about what's going on. My promise to you is that we will never, ever, ever try to sell you anything. We're just trying to put up notices and try to put up information that will provide assistance to you as a part of what's going on. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Just in the interest of entertainment, I have turned my email off for the next hour and a half, and I can't tell you how much joy that actually brings me. The same thing with turning my phone off. No one's going to be contacting me, so you are going to be together. So please let me know what I can do for as you have questions down the line. All right. So I'm just going to start talking about this. I'm going to frame this because for those of you who don't know who I am often involved in lawsuits. In special education and 504 lawsuits of late, because there's been a dramatic rise in 504 lawsuits in school districts. Not so much in ADA, but the rules we have relating to that are things that we need to pay attention to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight 3 cases that I was recently involved in. These are cases I've been involved in since this academic year. These are highly current ones, and I'm going to tell you the story. Here are the facts. Just going to describe you. But it basically, just to explain this one, it's just started with a single email. The parent of a middle schooler, an active, engaged parent who'd been always very, very supportive of the district, wrote to the superintendent late one Friday evening. That's typically when we reach out to superintendents, by the way. My dad was the superintendent. I know these things, okay? Her child, who is blind, couldn't access the school's online grade book. Every time he tried, the system would crash his screen reader. Homework assignments, grades, even announcements, everything that other students could easily view was out of reach for him. The mother had been patient, truly very patient. She had raised the issue with the school months earlier, but nothing had changed. So this time she copied the Office of Civil Rights. Okay. Within 2 weeks, this is prior to the current time. This happened last fall. Within 2 weeks, OCR had launched an investigation of the district's entire digital accessibility compliance under ADA Title II. It wasn't just the gradebook anymore. It was every website, every mobile app, every PDF, every online form. Staff scrambled. IT pulled 18-hour days trying to patch websites. Secretaries were pulled from the normal duties of basically running the schools to try to make online newsletters compliant. Communication directors had to explain to the school board and the public how the district ended up under federal investigation. And the price tag? This is the fun thing, all right? By the time the district negotiated a settlement agreement with OCR, they had spent over $300,000 on remediation services, consultant fees, attorney bills, and staff overtime. The reputational damage? Priceless. Okay? The truth is, okay, they could have prevented it all if they'd just taken digital accessibility seriously before it became a crisis. They could have acted when the new 2024 ADA Title II regulations were announced. They could have conducted a simple website audit. They could have built accessibility into their tech purchasing and staff training. Now every district is on the clock. Keep this in mind. The compliance deadlines are set. April 24th, 2026 for larger districts, April 26th, 2027 for smaller ones. The reality is digital accessibility isn't optional, it's a civil right. If we wait for compliance to come, it's already too late. If we act now, we can lead. We can show our families, our students, and our communities that we believe in true equity and we're willing to do the work to back it up. Okay. The next, so pay attention to this. Okay. Next email could hit any district's inbox. The question is, will you be ready? Okay. So think about this as we talk about this one. All right. So another story. All right. So do you think I'm only going to talk about kids who have visual impairments? No, wait, there's more. Okay. Right. 2 weeks into the school year, a high school sophomore with dyslexia transferred into the district. It could happen. She was smart, driven, and been using assistive technology for years, which is not atypical. She'd been using screen readers, text-to-speech apps, accessible digital textbooks. In her last district, these tools helped her to stay on track with her peers. But in the new district, things were different. When she logged in the district learning platform, she couldn't get her screen reader to work. Assignments were posted as scanned PDFs, images of text she couldn't select or listen to. Videos had no captions. Critical directions were embedded in colorful graphics with no alternative text. No one had checked if the district's digital content met accessible standards. No one had trained the teachers on how to post assignments in accessible formats. No one was prepared. Okay. Within 3 weeks, the capable student had fallen a full unit behind in multiple classes. Her parents, frustrated and heartbroken, requested an emergency meeting. And they didn't come alone. They brought an advocate, a private attorney, and a demand. Either fix the barriers immediately or face a complaint under ADA Title II and Section 504. The district was caught flat-footed. Okay? They hadn't updated their digital accessible policies to match the 2024 ADA Title II regulations. Staff weren't trained. There was no clear plan for fixing inaccessible materials. Now they were facing formal OCR scrutiny, and an angry family felt their daughter's civil rights had been trampled. It wasn't a technology problem. It wasn't a funding problem. It was a failure to plan, and it was preventable. Keep that in mind. Accessible digital content isn't a luxury for students with disabilities. It is not nice to have. It's required by law, and it's fundamental to giving every student a fair shot. With the 2024 ADA Title II update, the bar has been raised. The rules are clear, and the clock is ticking. The only real question, will we build a system where every student can succeed, or will we leave it until it's too late to fix? All right? Wait, just to make sure that you're not going to sleep even further. I'm doing another story, okay? This happened this past fall. It was kindergarten, well, no, actually, no, this one just happened. This is an interesting one, okay? It was kindergarten registration season, a time when parents across the district were logging onto the school's website, filling out digital forms, uploading documents, and signing their children up for the next chapter of their education. If you've never been to a kindergarten screening, go. It's amazing how scared the kids are about whether they're going to be locked in the lockers when they get older. It's an interesting thing. The problem is one mother couldn't log in. She was deaf. And the district's portal had no captioning of its instructional videos. The PDFs that needed to be signed and uploaded were scanned documents impossible to navigate using her screen reader. No contact information was available in accessible format. No interpreter was offered. No alternative access route was provided. All she wanted to do, and this is the basic thing, all she wanted to do was enroll her son. All the other parents could do it online in 10 minutes. For her, it was a brick wall. Frustrated and embarrassed, she reached out for help and quickly realized the district didn't have a process in place for ensuring digital accessibility. No one had audited the site. No one had checked the new registration platform against inaccessible standards. No one had thought about how parents with disabilities could navigate the process. It wasn't just unfair. It was illegal under ADA Title II. She filed a complaint. Okay? She filed a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights. The district soon found itself under investigation, not just for its enrollment portal, but for all its digital platforms, websites, learning portals, mobile apps, online forums. The entire digital infrastructure had to be examined, audited, and repaired. The legal fees and remediation costs piled up, but the real damage wasn't financial. Truly, it was trust. parent's initial foray into the educational system. The parent had been excluded from a fundamental part of her child's education because the district hadn't taken accessibility seriously. Word spread fast. Just make sure you understand. Here's the reality. ADA Title II doesn't just protect students. It protects parents, families, and the entire public. With the new 2024 regulations, OCRs aren't just waiting for complaints, they're actively looking. We want to avoid the next headline. If we need to act now, we need to audit our digital content, we need to train our staff, and we need to make accessibility a standard. Because the next time a parent clicks enroll, they shouldn't have to fight to get their child an appropriate education. So keep that in mind as we talk about this as we're going through this. All right. So this hit this really hard. Okay. This session's goal is to cover critical updates to ADA Title II, specifically the 2024 digital accessibility updates. We'll focus on how these changes impact public schools and local school districts, what compliance looks like, and what deadlines to be aware of. I'm going to make sure that you understand the rapid digitization of education post-pandemic and the increasing need to ensure all students, including those with disabilities, make sure that they can access educational content. This is vital. This is, and I want to raise this, not just as a legal job or a legal responsibility. I want to raise this as a moral issue. One where we are emphasizing the fact we want individuals who live within our communities, who are members of our towns, whose kids attend our schools, can access what's going on. That's what we need to pay attention to as a part of this, okay? So we have to understand this. We have to emphasize this. So keep this in mind as we address this, okay? So let me give you just a little bit of history. We're not going to give a lot of history. Those who know me, I will give too much, but I'm going to give you a little bit, okay? Just to remind you, the ADA was enacted in 1990. Why? What was happening is we had provided in 1975, we had provided Public Law 94-142. And what this did was provided access for kids with disabilities to participate in education. I speak from personal experience on this one. My brother-in-law, who has labeled as having profound intellectual disabilities and autism, was legally prevented from attending school for the first 17 years of his life. The Public Law 94-142, the original title was the Education for All Handicapped Children's Act, which later was changed to IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, allowed individuals with disabilities to participate in school and receive an appropriate education. We were providing appropriate education. We were doing this. And what was interesting about this, they had access to education, and we needed to realize that they would provide them education. And the moment they would graduate or leave school, they encountered a society that allowed discrimination. There were certain restaurants that you couldn't go to. My in-laws speak of this. There were restaurants that would say, "We don't serve his type. Take him away." Which was a stupid idea for the restaurant because my brother-in-law shows signs of Prader-Willi syndrome. Okay, that was stupid. There were businesses that would prevent him from coming in. And yes, he does have some physical manifestations, but he's quiet typically. So it's really interesting about this. So with the awareness is that schools were open, but society wasn't. And so the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. I was working on Capitol Hill at the time, and it was an interesting experience because the disability community came together in a unified fashion. Just to remind you, disabilities in the aggregate are the largest minority population we have in the United States, but we often don't think about this one. We often don't think about this because the needs of individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing are often very different from the needs of individuals who are blind and visually impaired, and still very different from the needs of individuals who use wheelchairs. So we had to think about this one, okay? ADA was a landmark legislation ensuring civil rights for individuals with disabilities, okay? But what is interesting about this, we're going to be spending the focus of our time over the next hour or so on how Title II is relevant because it applies to all services provided by state and local governments, and this includes schools. And that's what we need to focus on about this one. Because yeah, well, I'm not going to talk to you about employment issues so much. I'm going to be talking about the public entity's responsibilities and how we can address this. Okay. But I'm just going to give you a quick overview, still quick overview of ADA, things about this one. And I just want to make sure that you understand what we're going to be talking. This will not take long, but I want to paint the picture for you so you understand the 5 titles of ADA, because we're going to be talking about Title II. This is an introduction to the series that we're going to be having across Pennsylvania through Petan. So I want to make sure that you understand where this is coming from and what this provides. But the overview of ADA and its 5 major titles. And this is important. This is for us to understand. This is important for us to understand how complex people think it is, but it really is very basic. And that's what I want to emphasize as a part of this. Okay. And so, okay. Title I. We'll get to title, don't worry, we'll hit Title II, don't worry, okay? Title I, employment, okay? It prohibits discrimination in employment, okay? Now, what's interesting about this is that individuals with disabilities have to be able to do the essential functions of the job. There is misstatements out there on media that not in the media circle that I typically swim in, but there that says that it gives priority to individuals with disabilities. It does not give priority. It just makes sure that these individuals are on an equal playing field. It does not make sure that they have to hire people with disabilities, okay? And they have to have the essential functions of the job. There's a famous case where an individual was deaf and she wanted to become a surgical nurse. And she was not allowed to become a surgical nurse because she received most of her information through lip or speech reading. And when you're in surgery, you're wearing a mask. And that posed a significant problem. She could not do what's referred to as the essential function of the job. Okay. Employment also. Some jobs, we have individuals where they have requirements for how much they can lift, how much they can, and how fast they can do things, because they're the essential parts of the job. Okay? Firefighters should be able to carry a certain amount of weight up and down a ladder in a timely fashion. I want ambulance drivers to be able to drive safely and quickly through major intersections. So there's all the essential functions, okay? But it requires reasonable accommodations for qualified individuals with disabilities. There are some qualified individuals with disabilities who can hold these jobs and do very well. Okay, so keep this in mind as we address this. It's an important part of what we're doing. Okay, Title II, which is where we're going to spend most of our time the rest of today. Don't worry, we'll come back to this. But these are public services. It applies to state and local government entities, ensures access to programs, services, and activities. Okay. What's interesting, and we're not going to spend any time on this, but it covers public transportation service systems. I've been in multiple large cities where it's really kind of strange. You're riding a bus and all of a sudden the whole bus lowers down and someone is then able to wheel up on the bus and get there and ride the bus for the next couple stops. It is a little disconcerting, but it allows individuals to participate, allows individuals to be there as a part of this. Because prior to the Americans with Disabilities Act, many individuals with disabilities did not have access to this. And their services were not available for them, and it did not allow them to participate in where we are with this. So keep this in mind as we address this. It's just allowing people to participate, because this might remind you, some of you are saying, this doesn't affect me. All right, this doesn't affect me. But I can guarantee, no matter how long you live, you will have a family member with a disability. You may not now. You may not now. And I seriously, when someone told me this, the first time someone told me this, I was 19 years of age. At the time, only thing I could think of was my sister was weird. I'm an older brother, and that's my responsibility to tell her that. But since then, my grandmother's had a massive stroke, requiring the use of a wheelchair. My grandfather's had a massive stroke, also requiring the use of a walker. My mother's developed MS. My sister has a child who is deaf. And then another child who has mobility issues with his hands. So it's interesting about this. And I married into a family where my brother-in-law has profound intellectual disabilities. It's a part of my life. It's a part of what we deal with. And it's a part of what we're expecting, right? Because prior to the Americans with Disabilities Act, it was okay for restaurants, as I said, about my brother-in-law not to go to restaurants. I don't know what that would do for him, because his main goal in life each and every single day is to go to McDonald's. It is, and it's a successful day if you do it more than once. Let me tell you. So we've done that. We do what we have to do. Okay. We'll come back to Title II. Okay. Title III. Okay. Title III is public accommodations. Prohibits discrimination in businesses and nonprofit service providers open to the public. These are the public accommodations. I've alluded to this before. Includes restaurants, includes hotels, retail stores, theaters, private schools, and more. They still have to provide this. They still have to do this, and this is a vital part of the process. And this is something that we need to make sure that is being provided out there. Now, there are some places where we have to think about as what we're doing as providing appropriate services for these individuals, and what we're doing is a part of ensuring that they're receiving the appropriate services. But it's something that we need to think about as a part of this. So the Americans with Disabilities Act cuts across things. It's not just in what you're going on. Wait, there's more. You think I'm done? No, hold on. Okay. So Title 4 and 5, this is telecommunications and miscellaneous. This requires telephone and internet companies to provide services for individuals with hearing or speech disabilities. In Pennsylvania, we have what's called the Pennsylvania Relays. And I'm not talking about an amazing event in Philadelphia, the third week of April each year, which is one of my favorite sporting events. I'm talking about opportunities for individuals to use the telephone to communicate and interact with others. Because prior to this, it was almost impossible for individuals who were deaf or hard of hearing to communicate with their child's teacher. Just think about this. Think about how we take this for granted. It was almost impossible to do this. One thing we're seeing as a part of this is just the devices that increasingly are available for individuals who have disabilities. Because the general population is getting older, and what we have to think about this is ensuring that they have an opportunity to participate. Okay, wait, there's more. Okay, Title V, miscellaneous provisions, addresses retaliation, attorney's fees, and how Americans with Disabilities Act relates to other laws. Now, some of you are saying, when we talk about this disability, what is the term we use for disabilities? Well, it's the same definition we use under Section 504. And Section 504 has come under attack of late. I think it's good for now. That class action lawsuit out of Texas is, yes, they're still going, but they're not trying to remove the wholesale of all of Section 504 requirements, which was something we were concerned of just at the beginning of last month. So keep that in mind as we address this, okay? So understanding Title II, okay? This is where you guys come in. Now that you understand the big picture, this is where you come in. Applies to state and local governments, including schools, hence your being here. Requires program services to activities be accessible, okay? And encompasses both physical and digital accessibility, okay? This pick on that last one. Let's pick on that last bullet. It emphasizes that accessibility isn't limited to physical buildings. It includes digital content. Schools must ensure, absolutely must ensure, students can access instructional materials, websites, and online platforms. Those examples that I gave to you is at the beginning of this, that should help you understand these are must-tos. These are not should, these are must. You must do these things. And this is an important part of what we're addressing and important part of what we're dealing with. So keep with that, okay? So this has been around. As ADA has been around since 1990, okay? Again, it was a fun time in Capitol Hill when I was working there, okay? And I remember going to on July 26th, the signing of the 1 year anniversary of this. It was a fun time, okay? But it's ADA into 2024 updates. What they did is they expanded to address digital accessibility. Digital accessibility is the important part of what our school districts do. It's important for us to understand this, and it's important for us to address this. So this is the focus on website and mobile applications and equity and access to governmental services online, right? Now, what's interesting about this is we need to pay attention to this, and we need to address this. Now that the DOG has recognized a significant gap, as services, increasingly, services have moved online. Many have become inaccessible. And that's the problem. It's not allowing individuals with disabilities to actually participate in as things have moved. This new rule closes the gap and affirms that digital access is a civil right. And that's what we need to pay attention to as a part of this. This is a civil right for individuals as a part of this to address where we are with this, not just a moral right, but it's a civil right we need to think about is making sure we have these opportunities for people to do this. So increasingly the world is online and we have to think about this one. So keep this in mind as we're addressing this. So you can see how ADA is evolving, truly evolving with how changes in society are going. Because many of you are online as we speak. If you're not, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but you're online as we speak. And your ability to participate, your ability to pay attention, your ability to do things. Some of you are not dressed. That's okay. And you're still at work. It's all right with me. So keep this in mind as we address this, okay? So keep this in mind as we pay attention to this, as we're thinking about this, okay? The scope of the update, okay? So let's think how broad life is accessible, okay? And think about this. And accessibility is an important part of what we do. It's an important part of where we're moving to, and it's an important part of all the things we're addressing. The scope of this update applies to all public entities, schools, libraries, cities. It's not, yeah, don't worry, we're not just there. There wasn't this, hey, what can we do to make the work of schools difficult? The reason we're doing this is what can we do to make sure that people have an opportunity to participate in the public square? That's what we're talking about here. So what we're thinking about here, okay, it covers all of your websites, any mobile apps. Increasingly, I'm using these mobile apps. I had to use one at Wegmans last night because I couldn't figure out how to get from one place to the other and where things were. Mobile apps are vital. PDFs and digital forms are a part of this, okay? It applies to nearly every digital interface used by the public entity, okay? This includes forms, this includes portals, this includes learning platforms. This is especially important for school districts relying heavily on tech and instruction and communication. And most of your districts are doing that. And rightly so, because you can change things. We think about this, and many of these districts are doing this because they have a uniform central database where they can put everything, and it seems to change what's going on and makes it easier. Well, that's important. And that's what we have to think about this. It makes it easier as a part of this, but you have to ensure what we're doing is appropriate, okay? So let's talk about just some of the standards, all right? And what we got here, okay? We got the WCAG 2.1 level AA standards. We are delved into the weeds really fast, okay? Some of you don't understand what WCAG stands for. Well, it's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, okay? And so here's the breakdown. Let me make sure you understand this, okay? What this has done is this has adopted technical standards for compliance, ensures content is, and pay attention, focus on these, and you can understand this, that everything you're doing first is perceivable, it's operable, it's understandable and robust, okay? Now, breaking this down is make sure you understand, it is designed to ensure people with visual, auditory, physical, speech, cognitive, and neurological disabilities can access content, okay? Mention that I want to point out this, level AA is the middle tier, more than minimal, but not excessively complex to implement, all right? So there are higher standards. This is not the super high standard, things like this, right? So here, let me go into the weeds some more, Jay, just for your entertainment value, okay? Okay. 2.1, version 2.1 of the guidelines were released by the World Wide Web Consortium. Yeah, terms, and about 7 years ago, in June of 2018. Level AA is the middle level accessibility conformance. There are 3 levels. There's A, AA, and AAA. Plainly, level AA is the rules that most U.S. organizations, including schools, colleges, companies, and government entities, are legally expected to meet to make websites, digital content, and apps accessible to people with disabilities, okay? And what's interesting about this, level AA covers the biggest and most common barriers for users with vision, hearing, cognitive, or mobility disabilities. Keep that in mind as we address this, okay? So keep in mind a second, all right? More. Overview, okay? This is middle level accessibility, okay? But think about this. So now that you understand what WCAG stands for, okay? This could be a drinking game at your house tonight to see if people understand. Yet a new acronym that we have in special education. And this is a real life one. Those who've seen me do presentations before know that I periodically make them up, but this is a real life acronym and one that we need to pay attention to and address as a part of this, okay? It's been around for about almost 7 years. And this is not the highest standard, but the goal is to make sure that websites are available for people with disabilities. And think for the site, okay? So let me just like delve into this, okay? Delve into this and understand what we're talking about this, okay? Color contrasts, well, text must have a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 to 1, okay? So keep that in mind as a part of this. There needs to be high contrast, okay? And so it ensures that people with disabilities can actually access what's going on. Okay, you can see in the top half of this slide, there's higher contrast. In the lower half, there's less contrast. And you can see darker text on light background pass. So keep that in mind. Light gray on white, that would fail. And what we have to think about is not thinking about for us, is thinking about others. And too often we in society don't think about others. What we need to think about is others and help understand where we have about this one, okay? But ensures readability for users with low vision. And that's what we're striving for. We want individuals to be able to participate. We want individuals to understand what's going on. We want individuals to be there. And we want individuals to understand what's going on. Wait, there's more. Keyboard navigation, okay? And those of you who use a mouse or trackpad, I love my mouse or trackpad, but all functions as a part of the keyboard must work without a mouse, right? This takes some time. This takes some time. This takes some concerted effort because there's individuals who don't have the physical ability to control and understand how to use a mouse and how to operate a mouse. So we need to be there for them as a part of this and address what's going on. But everything must be operable using tab, enter, and spacebar. And this is going to take some understanding, but you have to understand we want these people to be able to participate. We want them there. We want them as part of our schools. They live in our neighborhoods. They live in our towns. Get them to participate in our schools, okay? So pop-up menus, pop-ups, menus, forms, they must be keyboard accessible so you can trigger through them with the arrow key, okay? This is critical, absolutely critical for users who cannot use a mouse. This is vital. This is vital. We need to think about this one. And we need to think about where we are with this and understand how to address this so that they can fully participate in what we're doing and fully understand what they're, okay? So wait, there's more, okay? Visible focus indicators provide clear focus when tabbing, okay? I'm betting that some of you lose your mouse when it's on your page. Sometimes I'm glad that I've lost my mouse and I don't know where it is. But you have to think about visual cues to find on outlines, borders, and glowing so that people understand what's going on. So they understand where we are with this, okay? But we need to have clear focus when tabbing and understand how to navigate what's going on as a part of this. This is not designed for you. This is designed for others who may need additional assistance. Remember, these are the individuals we want them to participate, okay? Users must always know where they are on the page. It makes it easier, it makes them understand what's going on and help understand what we can do to address the indicators where we are with this. Okay, more. Forms, labels, and instructions. Some of you districts have forms. Some of these are forms that you want the parents to fill out. If you don't have forms that you want the parents to fill out, you should get some. Parents like filling out forms. So keep this in mind as we talk about this one, okay? But forms must have clear and persistent labels, okay? And I mean this, I mean things like this. Do not rely solely on placeholders. Example of a labeled email address next to an input box. Make sure we understand this, okay? Make sure you understand that supports users with cognitive or visual disabilities. And keep this in mind as I talk about this one, we think about this one. And so you can see that there's some people who are really good at building these things, and there's others who are not. Like, give you an example, right? Some of the things that we have to do, error identification and suggestions, explain errors clearly and provide solutions, okay? I can't tell you how many times I have filled out forms saying you're missing an element, we can't submit this. And I can't figure out for the life of me, where is the element that I'm missing? And I mean this. is we need to do a better job of figuring out exactly what they need to do and explain this to them. I'm betting that every one of you have experienced this. Every one of you have experienced this at some point. Okay. I was filling out something. I was trying to help my daughter get an inspection of her vehicle, filling out the form for the gas station. We were going to do the inspection the other day, but ahead of time and things like this. And I missed some element, and they never told me. And I kept doing it, and kept doing it, and it just I finally I think it was the state, which they never told me. So bad is something went wrong. Or increasingly, if you try it 4 or 5 times and you don't get it, they say, you really suck. They don't say that, but that's probably what they're thinking. The good is the invalid email address. Please enter the format. What in this format? It helps users recover and helps understand what we can do as a part of this. So keep this in mind as we address this, and keep in mind the frustration. Keep in mind the frustration that many of you experience on this for individuals who have visual impairments, their ability to participate, for individuals who have mobility impairments and their ability to participate. It's something that we need to pay attention to and address as a part of this. Wait, more, okay? So the bottom line, so what do we got here? And the bottom line we got here is that the web content accessibility guidelines is you need to make sure things are clear, usable, and accessible for everyone. That means no guessing, no struggling, no barriers. Accessibility is not optional. It's essential. And that's something that we need to pay attention to as a part of this. We need to make sure what we're doing for these individuals is making sure is what they are able to do is they're able to actually participate in our life and our schools. And that's what we need to think about this one. All right. So where does this leave us? So we have some compliance deadlines. Large public entities, okay? So what's interesting, school districts are going to use local population or the SAPE estimates. Now, here, wait, another acronym, okay? SAPE stands for Small Area Income and Poverty Estimates. It's a program run by the US Census Bureau, okay? What it does is SAPE provides annual estimates of income and poverty levels for small geographic areas, specifically for all US states, counties, and school districts. Keep this in mind, okay? But the urgency of this is I can't reiterate, I cannot emphasize the urgency enough on this one. And I mean this. And luckily, this is a starter kit. This is not giving you all the final things. Potentially, we're going to be giving you guidance on this over the next couple of months to help you, because many of you are going to have to deal with this by next year. Compliance takes time, okay? It takes time in auditing. It takes time in budgeting. It takes time in training. Okay, so you have to understand what your population size and deadline as soon as possible. We'll begin planning. Okay, and it's interesting about this is we've talked about this. You have heads up that this is coming. You know this is coming. The same thing. The problem is think about the deadline that happened yesterday. Yesterday, real ID for flights was necessary for people on their driver's license. And that has been something that we've been talking about since, let's make sure we put it in a historical perspective, since 9/11. And that was in 2001. And so we have to think about how long we've been trying to do this. And we kept getting extensions and extensions on this. So you do not want to be the one who's trying to be the compliance deadline person next April. You need to start this now. You need to start this and deal with this now and help with where we are in this, okay? So let's talk about this. And I'm not going to make any political statements about this. All right, I'm not going to talk about what's going on in Washington. Some of you may have seen my sessions that I've done for like the National Joint Committee on Learning Disabilities last week and other policy statements. I have made political statements, but I'm going to tell you what the standard practice is. All right, the enforcement mechanisms for this is the Department of Justice. Yes, another acronym, has enforcement. It does investigations and lawsuits, things like this, okay? The Office of Civil Rights has problems with has oversight in education. Office of Civil Rights is in the Department of Education in Washington. Just to remind you that the Department of Education cannot be removed as a Department of Education by executive order. It takes an act of Congress. And I don't see this happening because the Congress can't seem to agree on a lot of things right now. But what you have to think about this one is the financial and reputational consequences of non-compliance, okay? OCR has made it a priority of late, up until January 19th, been especially active in enforcing digital access and education. Okay. Several districts had already entered resolution agreements. I was involved in those lawsuits and I highlighted them for you earlier. Okay. And so we got to resolution on those. So I can't tell you because there was not a public resolution on that one. So keep that in mind, but I can emphasize this one. Enforcement is important. Enforcement is important, but so those are the formal enforcement things. All right. Think about your attitudes about when I read those case studies at the very beginning of this. You may not be aware of this, but parents talk. Okay? Parents talk. Okay? They're sharing a lot of information on the Facebook. They're sharing a lot of information on Instagram. And what we have to think about as a part of the information they're sharing is the reputation that we have as a part of this. Parents are sharing information relating to reputation. They're sharing information about how individuals are responding to what's going on. And we want to make sure that we are doing what's appropriate so that we're not being dragged through the mud inappropriately. Okay? We need to do the level best and get ahead of this so that there's not problems. We need to think about this one. So even if there's not DOJ oversight, we need to do it for the members of our communities to ensure what they're getting is appropriate and that they're able to function as parts of our society. That's what we need to strive for. Okay. So how do we need to do this? Okay. You need to conduct an accessibility audit. Okay. And this is a fun time for all. Okay. But what you have to think about is inventory all digital assets. Okay. And there are tools, and we'll talk about the tools of this in a few minutes. Don't worry, do not run. All right. The tools are experts to test accessibility to help you with this one. Okay. And we need to think about any potential barriers for users with disabilities. Okay. So what you have to think about this one is think about using automated tools and manual reviews involving people with disabilities. Okay. Think about this one. There are things and many issues like poor alt text or mislabeled buttons can only be caught by human testers. Think about bringing some individuals in and working with them, individuals who have disabilities, to actually access what you have and make recommendations about how to make it better, faster, stronger, so that you can do these things and be part of what's going on. And use them. Start the communication. Work with them as a part of this. Because there are things that are part of our lives that we could never imagine that some individuals experience. Think about this one. And I live with an individual who has a pretty significant disability. And I just things I just never would imagine as a part of her life and what she's experiencing. And with things like this, it comes up in unique ways, and we need to make sure that we're reaching out and using individuals to help us provide accessibility to help as much as possible. Right? So not to put the burden on them. This is not to put the burden on them, but to ask them, do they want to be part of our teams to make sure what we're doing is appropriate as a part of this? Okay. So what you have to think about is develop an action plan. We'll talk about this in a few minutes. Okay. Okay. But start with your high traffic and essential content. Okay. Just start with your high traffic things. Now we can delve deep into this, and we will, but delve deep into the weeds on this one, and we will. Okay, but think about the high traffic items as a part of this. Okay, and start with like your school homepages, enrollment forms. For those many parents who have children who access the IEP systems and access information relating to that. Accessibility should be built into all future digital decisions. It should not be treated as an afterthought or oversight. Keep this in mind. What you need to think about this, and we're going to come back to this in a few minutes, but set deadlines and reasonable parties to do this. But include accessibility in all procurement and all IT purchases. This is something you need to emphasize as a part of what we're doing as a part of this. Okay, keep this in mind. All right. So second, as part of the action plan, that's step one. Second, make sure there's training and awareness. Train content creators, anybody, teachers, secretaries. Remember, secretaries run the places. Secretaries and IT individuals, make sure they understand what's going on, okay? Because too often we shelve this off to the IT person, okay? And I purposely have an IT background here today because the other backgrounds I have as a choice suck. But I just want to emphasize this, is pay attention to this. But you need to make sure that accessibility is everyone's responsibility. It is not just the IT person's responsibility or the IT agency or who you contract for IT. It's part of everything that you do. So make sure you're building accessibility into routine workflows as a part of this, okay? So make sure. Well, I would emphasize promote a culture of inclusion and emphasize this so that we can include individuals who have disabilities who are part of our lives. And again, remember, this doesn't just go to the kids. It goes to our staff. It goes to the parents. It goes to anyone who is accessing our website, things like this one, okay? But training must be tailored to roles, okay? So make sure you, like for teachers, accessible PDFs. Make sure that when you talk with your administration who are making purchasing decisions, the ones with the big bucks, they made any decisions on a procurement need to pay attention to this as well. So it's a vital part of the process and things like this. Keep that in mind. Wait, there's more, okay? Monitoring and maintenance. Schedule periodic reviews. Make sure that you have reviews as you understand where we're going with this and constantly do this. This is not a one-time thing. This is an ongoing thing that you need to monitor. That truly, this is not just a one-time thing. You need to monitor this on a regular basis. And keep this in mind as we address this. Keep this in mind, okay? And so it's an ongoing obligation. It's not just a one and done. It's ongoing, okay? So what I would recommend is that you assign someone on your staff. It could be you because you get paid so well, but it could be you to monitor compliance and gather user feedback regularly on what's going on and make sure that understand what's going on. But track fixes and follow up. Track fixes and document this one. One of the things you need to make sure that you understand as a part of this, and we have an acronym in special ed. For those of you who understand, might come from the special ed world. We have an acronym in special ed. It's called CYA. I don't remember what it stands for. But if you find that there is a website or a part of your program that is not appropriate, make sure that you tell somebody, make sure you tell this person in writing. And make sure you do this because that covers the fact that something covers you. But it's interesting, make sure that you track this and that they understand what specifically you're asking them to do as a part of this, okay? But again, remind your staff that it's ongoing. It's not just one, and that's something we need to emphasize, okay? Okay, so questions specifically for your district. Some of you are IU employees, you don't get off the hook, all right? Now, this is not the time to put your head down. You have to think about it. Think about this, okay? What I want you to think about is what is your district's biggest challenges? And also, think about this. What support do you need to do to move forward as a part of this? You need to think about the opportunities to do this and opportunities to move forward as a part of this and where to go with this. And so keep this in mind as we address this. But you need to start thinking about for your own individual district, how am I going to do this? Okay, so keep this in mind as we address this and keep in mind, all right? So wait, you think I've got more? I got additional resources, okay? So yeah, again, you guys will get copies of this, make sure that you see this, but the full regulatory language, I broke that down to you earlier into the 5 component parts, the 5 titles. So you have a really good understanding of what's going on. We're talking about Title II today, and that's what we're emphasizing. What you want to spend your time on is understanding the WCAG guidelines. And so we have the actual link here for you to help understand where we are at this one and help where we can do with this, okay? And they can guide and the NCADEMI roadmap. These courses can help guide your next steps and with clarified technical questions beyond today's session. So keep this in mind as we address this, okay? So I'm going to change topics, okay? And so what I'm going to focus on is Pennsylvania specific things we need to focus on as a part of this, okay? And just the regulations on educational institutions. We're going to focus on platforms commonly used in schools, such as public websites, portals, things like this, and address it, okay? So what do we need to emphasize here, okay? And this is something that, so you'll be given a copy of this, and you can use this green section to take to your teams to highlight why they're responsible, what their responsibilities are and what they need to do, and think about this one. You can take our names off this. You can use this for your teams and help understand what's going on and explain to them. We've laid it out for you so that you can articulate very clearly what needs to be addressed as a part of this, okay? The scope of Title II, okay? Remember, all your public K-12 schools, not just your high schools, not just your elementary schools. It applies to all, and it covers all programs and services offered digitally. Remind people as we're talking about this, how society has changed to a more online forum, and how increasingly we're doing things online. We need to address this, okay? That every digital touch print, okay, used by public educational entity must now meet accessibility standards. This includes all external websites and internal systems like IEP tools, lunch menus, school apps. And also, for those of you teachers and administrators, if you're linking to external websites, you also need to make sure that what you're linking to is also appropriate. But the emphasis on this, and why I gave you those case studies to start with, includes instructional content, forms, announcements, and more. You want our members of our community to be able to participate. You want them to address this. You want them to pay attention to where we are with this. So keep this in mind as we're addressing this, okay? But more, public-facing websites, talk to teachers, okay? That their homepage, any news items, any calendars, and your board meeting links. Oh yes, make sure you tell the board members this. I remember I wrote a book for school board members about what they needed to know about special ed. It was a great fun book. It was a great thing like this. But we did not cover accessibility as a part of this, because that was at that time it was not a major item. It predated the Title II changes. But it's interesting about this. Okay, make sure all public-facing websites can be available. Okay, because why is this important? For most families, this is their first point of contact for your school district and for the public. They must be accessible to screen readers and support keyboard navigations, as we talked about, and avoid inaccessible PDFs or images without alt text, things like this. Keep this in mind as we address this, okay? Pay attention to this one, okay? So make sure you're going at this, and I can't emphasize, portals like PowerSchool, Skyward, Infinite Campus, there's others out there, you know, because you're paying the big bucks for them, okay? Make sure that they're available and essential for student engagement. It is vital that they participate. It's vital they understand what's going on. And the IEP platforms, we have two main ones in the Commonwealth. I'm working with other states in rewriting their IEP platforms. But IEP Writer is one that is one of the more used by most school districts in the Commonwealth. Make sure that when you're using this and the parents accessing information that's provided for this, it's available for them to understand how to do this. But then last, also, gradebooks, schedules, and transportation systems. We want the parents to participate. We want them to be there. We want them to be there for kids. These systems are essential for student engagement and compliance. Inaccessible portals may deny access to critical IEP data or grades, and that could violate ADA protections. Because remember, it's not just for parents to participate, it's for all of your staff also to participate. So keep this in mind as we're addressing this, and keep this in mind as we're paying attention to this one, okay? And the mobile applications, apps for classroom communication, like Remind, Class Dojo, and I've seen a number of them of late, things like this, but learning tools like Google Classroom, Seesaw, okay? But administrative apps like bus tracking, lunch account apps, all those kinds of things, all those need to make sure that we're accessible. You need to make sure to go in think about all the apps that you use just to get through the day. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, okay? I use my iPad for almost everything. This presentation is being streamed through my iPad as a part of this, but I use probably, I check each week, I use 45 different apps, some weeks 50, but it's the kind of thing you have to think about these one. Same thing with teachers as they're recording what they're doing as a part of where they're going. And it's something we need to understand about this, okay? But you have to make sure the accessibility for apps includes text alternatives. It talks about high contrast and compatibility with mobile screen readers. Because think about this, increasingly people are getting access on their phones. And there are some websites that are just sucky on phones. and think about how we participate, or fill in information. I was filling in information on my phone the other day and it wouldn't let me see what I was typing, and I kept typing the wrong date and they would say just wrong. And I was pissed. So yeah, all right. That business did not get my money. Remind you, you need to think about app contracts and vendor agreements and must now be account for ADA compliance as a part of this. So keep that in mind. Okay. So so these are some mobile apps. Let's talk about some possible things where there's some possible failures. Okay. I like PDFs. Just putting it out there. Many of you probably say this. Some of you have bumper stickers that say, I like PDFs. That's nice. I'm happy for you too. Things like this. Okay. And they think about this. You need to make sure though there's opportunities for forms with tagging so that people can add or subtract, understand what's going on, and things like that. Okay. But this is what these are things, because I have done work for the Office of Civil Rights. And these are some typical problems we have found with OCR audits and parent complaints. And I read through this. Some of you understand what's happening in the pit. Some of you understand what's happening in Thailand at the White Lotus. I understand what's happening through OCR complaints. I know I need to get a better life, but that's the life I lead. Okay, so keep this in mind. Okay, but these are typical problems. Okay, most of these things. Inaccessible navigation, drop downs, carousels. There are some apps where you have to drop down. I can't do this, and I am good with what my mouse use. Things like this. All right, I paid extra for a good trackpad. Things like this. Okay. There are some that are color only cues and have poor contrast. There are individuals out there, and we typically don't think about individuals who are colorblind as having a disability, but their ability to access it, some of these individuals' ability to access what's going on poses a significant problem. Why are we paying attention to this? Is we want them to be able to access what's going on. So what I want to recommend, based on these common errors, again, audit of all your websites, portals, and apps. Make sure that all your vendors and IT teams are in remediation, engage them with this. Add accessibility reviews to procurement and all professional development. Okay. What we're giving you some information here that you can use for your professional development. Patan is really doing a wonderful job of getting information out to us. But you need to think about this as a proactive thing. Okay. You should not wait for complaints. All right. Do not wait for complaints. Okay. Some of you who wait for complaints think that your poop doesn't stink. All right. Keep that in mind, because I work with a lot of school districts in the Commonwealth who are getting sued on a regular basis for special education issues. You know who you are, and you know when I come, it's not often good. Things about this, but you schools, you should not wait for complaints. Okay. Be proactive about this. This is about civil rights and access to public education in a digital era. And we are all living in this. And this is something we have to think about, okay? All right, so let me give you some questions you can take back to your district as a part of this to help you steer this. Okay? I want you to make a list of all the various platforms that you use in your district. And some of you, this is going to be a long list. Some of this is going to be a short list, okay? But this, okay? Where do you see risk or opportunities for improvement, okay? Now think about this one. I want you to think about and how we're tackling accessibility. Okay, think about all these different parts of this, what's going on, and all the different touch points. And this is interesting because I used to help districts with accessibility audits of their schools for just wheelchairs and individuals who had physical disabilities and things like this. And one of the main things that I would often do, and I would often try to go do accessibility audits as part of physical accessibility for parents who were first coming into a school. And many of you don't ever pay attention to this. But think about this. When you come into school, if you're from the outside, you have all these signs that typically say, you need to go to the office. Okay, sign in at the office. That's often very good. Many of you, when you walk in the schools, once you walk in the building, there are no signs that let you know how to get to an office or where the office is. And that poses a significant problem. You have to think about that kind of introduction to a school setting where you seem disorganized, you seem like you don't know what you're doing. You need to make sure that all these things are as a part of this, okay? So keep this in mind as we're addressing this. And paying attention to this, right? Shifting topics, all right? Ensuring digital accessibility, make sure we understand this, okay? So what do we think about this one? And I want to emphasize compliance and ensuring digital accessibility. Compliance requires a coordinated effort, okay? Isn't it, and this is not a solo act. You are not going to hire just one person to do compliance. There you have multiple individuals who be there for compliance. You have multiple individuals to help understand what's going on. This is a team effort, okay? Access compliance requires a coordinated effort as a part of this. It requires leadership from administrators. It requires implementation from IT and daily diligence from educators. This is, we're not talking, again, emphasize, if you learn nothing else today, emphasize this is not a one and done. This is going to be an ongoing responsibility for your districts to ensure that individuals have an opportunity to access the digital content as we increasingly move to a digital world. This is vital. This is important. Okay. But you have to think about this. It must be aligned to legal requirements and practical implementation. Okay. Without coordination, gaps will persist. Okay. So for school administrators, all right, let's talk about the what. So when you go back, this is what your responsibility is for school administrators. Okay. So make sure that you update all policies. All school administrators, make sure you understand this, okay? You lead with policy. You know, some of you don't understand. I don't understand this. Some of you don't understand the specifics of this. That's okay, but you lead with this. Make sure that people who can help you understand what's going on. Update the policies to reflect ADA Title II requirements, okay? Accessibility should be built into all district policies, websites, and communication strategies, okay? But also set expectations for accessibility in use, in tech use, and all procurement. Think about this. This is going to be an obligation for all of us to be part of this, okay? But then designate specific responsibility and accountability to ensure someone is there that can help provide this and help understand what's going on, okay? But it also, this includes board level awareness and just even written standards to help address where we are with this. This is something we need to pay attention to this, okay? Wait, there's more for school administrators. Yes, okay. School administrators, you need to make sure that there's budgeting and resources. Okay. I'm not shying away from this, and make sure that you understand. I'm truly not shying away from this. Is you need to emphasize that compliance costs money. Okay. Compliance costs money. Whether it's a software update, whether it's professional development, or it's contracts with accessibility vendors, and you must plan and prioritize funding accordingly, okay? So make sure that you're allocating funds for audits, you're allocating fundings for training, and you're allocating funding for remediation, okay? But then also that you understand that you are the supporting staff time and tools needed for compliance, okay? This is a vital part of the process, okay? But require this and include accessibility into tech planning, require as a part of this, and make sure that as a part of all budget cycles, you're thinking about this one. And some of you like budget cycles. Some of you are really excited by this. Some of you not so much, and I'm there with you on that. But it's interesting about this, you need to think about making sure that you are including this as a part of this. And I've got some guidelines for you on to think about this. But keep this in mind as we address this, and keep this in mind now that we need to pay attention to this. But you need to start thinking about what's going to go on this. I got some more tools for you on this in a second, okay? But school administrators more, okay? Okay. I'll come back to this, what stay here, but segment. Let me give you an overview about this one. No, all new tools should not be approved unless they're accessible. Keep this in mind. You're making a purchase, you're making a think like this, a contract with something, okay? Use procurement as a gatekeeper, okay? If vendors can't prove compliance, you should not sign. All right, keep this in mind. Okay, so some of these vendors do a great job of advertising their wares. Okay, they truly do. They're great, but you need to make sure that all the vendors that you're working with meet the WCAG 2.1 AA standards, and I mean this. Okay, make sure that as a part of your standard clauses in your RFPs, if you're sending something out for someone to review, that you include accessibility as a part of this, and keep that in mind as a part of this. Okay, and then make sure that you're also vetting tools before classroom adoption. This is what school administrators need to think about. This is what you need to start paying attention to and addressing with everyone at a very early age as a part of this, okay? You can, I'm serious like this, okay? You can use this and understand what's going on. I mean this, okay? Procurement is a gatekeeper. Don't let people in who don't do this, all right? So for IT staff, we were talking about administrators. Now let's talk about IT staff. Okay. Technical compliance. Perform accessibility audits of websites, portals, and apps. You have a critical role of identifying and fixing digital accessibility issues. That includes alt text, code structure, and navigation. I'm thankful that people are interested in doing that and thankful that people have the skills to do that because I lack those skills, okay? But you also need to make sure that we're maintaining long-term compliance, okay? So what I wanted to make sure that you are addressing as a part of this, you remediate issues based on this, and that you coordinate with external experts when needed. If you don't know, get help. Get help. And ChatGPT is not the only place you can go for help. You can go to officials out there who actually understand what's going on. So that's something we need to pay attention to, okay? More for IT staff. Ongoing monitoring and support. Monitoring must be routine. This should be part of what's going on. Many of you as IT staff, you are called in for emergencies. I'm well aware of this. I have a friend who does IT for a fairly large school district. A lot of what he does is turn on and then off the computers and that restarts things. And magically that solves a lot of the problems, okay? He's very good at that, by the way. But he needs to expand, he knows he needs to expand the roles that he has as a part of this. He needs to expand what's going on, okay? Monitoring must be a routine aspect of this. You should schedule periodic scans and updates, and your IT staff should be proactive in adjusting for future tech shifts or legal guidance. So stay on top of this. This presentation here is not it's not the only one. There's more advanced stuff coming, and you should sign up for those. I guarantee they're going to be good. All right. You need to make sure that it's better than a regular guarantee. You need to make sure that you pay attention to this and pay attention to news on these items and news on what's going on. But implement these accessibility access tools and understand what's going on. So keep that in mind. So I've talked about administrators, I've talked about IT staff. Wait, let's talk about educators, okay? Many of these educators are content creators. They often don't think of themselves as content creators. They think of themselves as educators who just put stuff out there, but they're actually creating content. No, we're not paying them as like those YouTube people like I see, okay? But we have to think about this one, okay? Why is this important? Teachers interact most with students and families. And I mean this, okay? Many parents don't know the name of the superintendent. And my dad was a superintendent for many years. That would piss him off by saying it, but it's true. But it's interesting that they know their child's teacher. And that child's teacher is how they view the school district. They may only know one person. Your district may be fairly large, but they think about the contents of what's going on in the district based on the experience with that one teacher. And we need to make sure that that one teacher is providing accessible instructional materials. Either it's Google Docs slides, whatever it is for these things like that, okay? If a teacher posts a class handout as an image-only PDF with no alt text, a student with a disability may be completely excluded from the participation. The parents may be completely excluded from participation, okay? So keep this in mind as a part of this. We want educators as part of this to be part of what's going on. So avoid color-only cues or inaccessible design choices. What we have to think about this is ensuring what we're doing as a part of this, okay? So wait, more for educators, okay? Teachers should not adopt tools just because they're popular. And I'm aware of this, okay? Teachers are spending a lot of time on Pinterest, on Instagram, on the YouTube, on Teachers Pay Teachers, and they make sure that what they need they're using is things that are accessible. Just because something's popular doesn't mean it's good. So what we have to think about this, okay? You need to understand the risks and the requirements, okay? Training is critical to prevent accidental non-compliance. So we need to make sure that learning management system features that support accessibility, like Canvas and Google Classroom, can help with this and help provide where it's gone. But teachers need to participate in accessibility training. And we need to emphasize this for them as a part of what's going on, okay? So the risk of non-compliance, okay? We're going to this pay attention to this one. Some of you are thinking because of what's going on in Washington, that the first one's off the table. That we're not going to have as much DOJ complaints or OCR investigations, okay? Compliance is not optional. What I think make sure you understand, the compliance Noncompliance exposes your district to real legal risk and damages your reputation. But more importantly, and I mean this literally, more importantly, it excludes students, excludes parents. So let's pay attention. Legal, yeah, I'm there for legal. I was a hearing officer in the Commonwealth for decades, so I understand this. All right, let's pay attention to this. Ethical, you're denying students with disabilities equitable access. These are individuals who have a disability at no fault of their own. They're just trying to make it through the day. And we need to do our level best as professionals to allow them the opportunity to participate and allow them to be there for the kids and allow them to be there with their peers and understand what's going on. Okay. But let's pay attention also to reputational. Okay. Reputational is you will lose community trust. Okay. Your best selling point, your absolute best selling point for real estate, your best selling point for others in the community is the statements from the parents in your school district. I wrote a book years ago on how to market your schools. Didn't sell very well. It's not a good book. Do not buy it. But I understand this. I understand the roles and responsibilities on this one. Okay. But it's an interesting part of this process is that they're the ones who are selling your school district. And if you're excluding them, think about this. They're not going to be there for you. And we need to be there for them so that that's an equal opportunity as a part of this. And keep in mind, we're emphasizing this. So how do we move forward together? Think about this one. You need to think about integrating action. I've parsed out into administrators, to IT staff, and educators. We need to work together. Okay? We need to have integrated actions on this. Okay? I have not used this acronym before in a lecture in education, but this should be part of your school's DNA. Okay? I'm not going to tell you what it means, but it should be part of your school's DNA. Okay? All teams must take ownership for inclusive digital practices and think like this. Okay? Make accessibility a standard agenda item. View compliance as equity, not just an obligation. All right. So keep this in mind as we address this, and keep this in mind as we pay attention to this one. All right. And how to do this. All right. And address where we're going with this and what we can do as part of this. So questions for your district. Okay. Where are your roles defined? What barriers do you face? Okay. But more importantly, what can you do this month to make a difference? That's what's important. What can you do this month to make a difference? And what can you do as a part of this? Okay. And so keep this in mind as we address this. All right. So next, and I'm going to skim through this next section because it's going to be provided for you, but I'm going to skim through it. Okay. But it's basically how to build digital accessibility and what's going on. Okay. So procurement is a frontline defense. Okay. And I mean this. As a part of all procurement of things like this, if a product is inaccessible from the start, remediation is much more costly. You should not sign off on tools unless vendors can provide VPATs or documents. WCAG compliance is a part of this, okay? Voluntary production accessibility templates, all right? Yet another acronym, keep that in mind, okay? Sample accessibility checklist. Does the vendor provide this? Or accessible conformance reports, okay? Are all features available or operable by keyboard, okay? So keep this in mind as we talk about this. Does it include captions? Does it include alt text? Can color contrast be customized? These are questions that should be standard questions as a part of everything that we're doing. Standard questions that will help us address where we are with this one, okay? So free tools, okay? Wave is a browser-based, okay? These tools help identify common problems, missing alt text, low contrast, navigational errors, okay? You should make sure your IT staff and web editors use them routinely. These are free tools for accessibility access, things like this one. So keep this in mind. One's basically, many of you use Chrome or Firefox. I sometimes use one. Sometimes some websites work better with one, sometimes work better with others. Sometimes I use Safari. It depends on my day, depends on my mood. Okay, things like this. But make sure that you have opportunities to do this, okay? So, like, for instance, I'm just going to go with this. I'm not going to go log into this, okay? But this is this. You can see this. I've got it here for you. We're flagged items as part of this, okay? Create clear, accessible content. Provide clear heading structures, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, things like this. Provide text alternatives. What's interesting, most accessibility features come from the content side, not the code. Remind yourself of this, is that the teachers who are the ones who are driving the content, much of this comes from this. Teachers and staff must learn how to post documents, how to post slides, and videos in ways that all users can access. Training should start here. So keep that in mind as we address it. Okay. So what are some quick wins? Add alt text to every image and chart. Just make sure built-in checkers can identify common areas as a part of this and help with understanding where this. Okay. Run accessibility checkers in Word, PowerPoint, and Google. And some of you like this. Okay. But think about this one. Okay. But keep this in mind as we address this, and keep it in mind as we pay attention to this one. And this is something we need to pay attention to as a part of this. All right. So what I'm going to skip down. You can see I've got a lot more for you here, but I want to get to some building accessibility into PD plans. Okay. Again, you'll get this. Okay. Lining with staff with expectations. Okay. Why collaboration matters. But I want to basically walk you through a step-by-step process. Okay. Okay. So what I want you to do, there are key internal people that I want you to think about this one too. Okay. Your accessibility guidelines. These are your IT directors or your web managers. And I'm betting they're fairly busy individuals, often with big monitors and multiple monitors. I'm always typically impressed with the array of monitors. But you also need to make sure that your director of special education is aware of this, that your communications public relations lead and your curriculum instructions. Okay. These are the key internal contacts. If your team doesn't have a formal accessibility coordinator, you need to designate somebody. Okay. And together, these individuals could become the core of your working accessibility group. And this is something we need to pay attention to as a part of this. Okay. So keep that in mind as we address this, and ensuring what we're doing as part of this, and emphasizing what we can do as a part of this. Okay. But that's the first thing. Okay. Second, set clear goals for your district. Okay. And we talk about this as short-term goals, long-term, medium-term goals, or long-term goals as a part of this, and how to emphasize we can pay attention to this. Short-term, conduct an audit of all your of 5 key platforms. That's a short-term goal. Okay. Some of you in special ed can help with writing these goals. All right, thanks about this one. But what I'm going to emphasize, this is a term that I want to emphasize. This is a special ed term. Is I want to emphasize the use of what's called SMART goals. And this is an interesting term. SMART means, it's an acronym. It means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Okay. SMART goals is a standard way to think about how we write goals, not just for IEPs. I wrote a book on legally compliant IEPs, and we talked about SMART goals extensively in there. Okay. But set SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. This framework will help you take bite-sized but impactful actions to help move what's going on. Okay. But you can see, set clear goals for your district, and clear goals that you can also measure. Because without measuring it, you don't know if it's actually making progress or not. Wait, there's more. Okay. Define the next steps for each goal. Okay. Write a goal, yes, but assign ownership. Okay. Because goals without actions, or with action, or without action plans, they tend to fade. Okay. Assign leaders, agree on deadlines, and define what resources, time, tools, training are needed for success. Okay. So keep this in mind. Create a timeline when you should do this, when you should get this done by as a part of this, and where you're going to do this. Okay. Next, build a feedback loop. Okay. We do this with, those of you in special ed know we do this with IEPs, or at the end of each marking period, we make determinations, yes or no, about whether the child's making progress, and provide reporting to the parents. Okay. If you're not doing that, please start doing that. Okay. But as part of step 4 is build feedback loops. Create a reporting structure for accessibility issues. Okay. Use data to improve your accessibility. Make reporting easy, whether it's a Google form for staff or parent input at PTA meetings or just parent input about what's ever, things like this. But gather feedback as a part of this so that we have some sense about what's going on and we have clear sense about how to improve services for kids. This is what's vital as a part of this. We need to make sure that we're actually taking the feedback we're getting from parents, we're taking the feedback as a part of what we're getting, and we can address this and improve this. Okay, wait, there's more. Okay, measure and celebrate success. Celebrate the impact of your work. Share metrics, share stories, share visible wins. Okay, recognition sustains momentum and demonstrates your district's commitment to equity. Okay, I'm working with a special ed director right now in Southern Fulton, who's doing an amazing job there of changing the culture and changing what's going on a part of IEPs. I'm working with a few other districts in the Commonwealth and helping this as a part of this, and be able to celebrate the successes with them and help them understand what they're doing is improving services and improving what's going on. But talk about what changed, compare before and after scans, so you can talk about how things were, how things are now. Talk about who benefited. Make sure you survey impacted users and share wins publicly. Board reports, staff meetings, make sure we're addressing these things like this, okay? But just emphasize for your teams as a part of this, that accessibility is ongoing. It is not one time. Please, please, we've got to emphasize this one, all right? You need to build it into your culture. You need to build it into your standard of what's going on. This is about building long-term capacity. It's not just legal, it's about dignity. It's about opportunity. And it's about access for all students and all the parents to be able to participate in what's going on is what we're doing. So keep this in mind as we address this, and I can't emphasize this enough. I mean this literally. This is something we need to pay attention to as a part of this, okay? So keep this in mind as we address this. So I'm gonna skip down. You can see there's more, okay? There's more here, okay? Keep this in mind, I got more, but I want to emphasize, okay? Key takeaways. ADA Title II now includes enforceable digital accessibility standards. You must ensure your websites, your mobile apps, and digital tools are accessible, okay? Okay. Non-compliance can result in complaints, investigations, and lawsuits. But if you learn nothing else from me today, accessibility is not just a legal issue, it's a civil rights issue. And we need to emphasize this one. And it's about educational access. Many of your things you've done, and this is a result in part because of the COVID, but also we've become increasingly on online school systems, online interactions with parents. We need to do a better job of ensuring what we're doing as a part of this, okay? And we need to do a better job of ensuring where we are with this, okay? So keep this in mind as we pay attention to this, all right? So next step, conduct an internal accessibility audit. Designate a digital compliance lead within your district. It could be you. In fact, if I could anoint you right now, I would. Develop or update a district-wide accessibility policy, help with this. Internal accessibility audit, review all websites, review all learning platforms, start identifying non-compliant content, and prioritize start with your high traffic pages and anything that the parents might access and the public might access, okay? But start engaging staff with knowledge of WCAG 2.1 standards. Let's talk about this one, okay? Designate a compliance lead. Again, this could be you, someone responsible for accessibility, things like this. Make sure that you have an accessibility policy to understand this, write a policy for this, make sure that you put this in front of your board, talk about this as part of all procurement and train all relevant staff as a part of this, okay? Step 4, make sure that there's some handout, there's some things we can pass out as a part of this, but I'm gonna go to you, okay? Earlier, I started talking about this, okay? So when I worked with this district, this is with that first one I told you about, okay? That first one I shared with you is problems with the email, okay? Where the parent of a middle schooler, an active, engaged parent who'd been supportive of the district, was trying to help her child who was blind participate. So what that district did as a part of this, we made sure the district conducted a full digital accessibility audit, implemented mandatory staff training on ADA compliance. It hired an accessibility coordinator and built accessibility requirements into all tech purchasing contracts. But it also, this is the kicker, it created a rapid response system for digital accessibility complaints and made sure parents could do this. What's interesting about this, as a result of this, the student regained access to the gradebook and all digital tools. Okay, and OCR, like they're gone now. Keep this in mind. The second one, I talked about this one. Okay, this is where the high school sophomore with dyslexia transferred into the district. Remember that one? Trained all teachers to create accessible digital materials, adopted accessibility friendly guidelines, and instituted a digital accessibility review for all posted content. Okay? The result, the student quickly caught up in her classes and regained confidence. I can't tell you how proud I am of that district and what they've done for that individual as a part of this. I wish I could say that about all the cases that I'm involved in. Okay. Third one, remember this one? It's when the kindergarten registration problem that the parent had as a part of this, and added live support for families needing accommodations. It created accessible screen reader friendly forms. It trained registration and administrative staff on accessibility. Okay. As a part of this, the parent enrolled her son successfully and public trust was restored. So keep this in mind as we address this. We want these individuals who live in our towns, who live in our communities, to be able to participate. We want everyone to be a part of what's going on. So I applaud all of you for coming to this. This is a starter kit for what we're putting together in front of you. This is to whet your appetite for what's coming. For those of you who have additional questions or concerns, this is my email address. Do not hesitate to use it. I answer my email many more times a day than my wife wants me to. So keep this in mind as you address this. More information about me can be found at the website, specialedconsultant.org, or go to the blog, sign up for it. We will not try to sell you anything. But I'm going to turn it back over to Greg right now, who will finish this for us.